I always say it's like the best decision you can make. There's like decisions we can make, high leverage decisions or very kind of low leverage, like what cereal I'm going to eat. Or you see this a lot with like kind of Eastern medicine or like people that are trying to, I don't know, they're pulling on small levers. I see it within my family. It's like, what toothpaste am I using? Today I had ibuprofen because I injured myself with climbing. I used to be against any sort of, it's like, that's not going to change my health span. But who I'm going to choose as a life partner is that choice. Everything has fallen downstream from that. It affected everything. That one choice has dictated all the success in my life.
Welcome to the Vision Dev podcast, where entrepreneurs, innovators, and creators come to us to not only share their stories, but also their mindset, the strategies, and the tools behind their great accomplishments. Hey everyone, welcome to the Vision Dev podcast. My name is Leo Burnett. I'm your host and co-founder of Vision Dev, our real estate private equity firm. And on the goal to building our dream real estate portfolio, I like to interview high-achieving people to hear about their story and learn about their tips and tricks on how we could improve our own business and share these with our audience. Today's guest is very special because we met in total silence, sitting next to each other at a 10-day meditation retreat a couple years ago. And for the entire 10 days, I had a very good vibe coming out of him. So I was very curious to meet him. When we met at the end, we became instantly friends, bonding over shared topics like business and technology, philosophy and spirituality, and our favorite podcasters like Naval Ravikant, Tim Ferriss. And we had multiple hour-long conversations since around coffee, talking about our favorite topics. I always thought he should come on the podcast, and it finally happened. Our guest today's name is Aatik Chopra, and he self-describes as having one foot in the technology world and the other foot in the spiritual world. He's been an educator for the better part of his life, coaching high-potential teenagers, working on world-changing projects sponsored by big technology companies like Facebook, and at the same time, he's building his personal coaching practice to help high achievers pivot and find more meaningful direction in life. It's a fascinating conversation around education and the public school system. We talk about our favorite topic, fatherhood, because he's also become a father recently. We talk about radical ownership and plenty other great topics that Aatik writes about in his blog. So you will not want to miss this great episode. I wish it would have lasted hours more, but we had to keep it short, and we'll have Aatik again on the podcast.
No, but that's the thing. Like when we talk, you were like, okay, this episode's going to feel more spiritual, like, philosophical. It's a really tough thing for me, man. Like not having a clear identity. It's
you're building one at the moment.
That's it.
So you're in between.
Yeah, but I talked to a stranger for 3 hours at Le Toledo bakery, and he was like, we were just talking about swimming, and I was like, okay, yeah, okay, you do the butterfly. He's like, oh, do you swim? I was like, kind of, like, not right now. Okay. And then we talk about hockey. He's like, Montreal Canadiens. Whenever anyone's watching this, it's playoff hockey right now. He's like, so you've been following them? I was like, no, I just kind of bandwagon. I heard they made the playoffs, so I'm back into it. And it just made me he's like, okay, so like, what is it that you're really good at? Because then we started talking about craft, and I was like, I don't really know. And it just makes me think for our conversation, like,
what's going to be the title of the episode?
Well, that's your job. I don't know, man. I'm outsourcing that to you. But it's like easier said than done, because I think on the outside it seems like, okay, diversification of identity. It's there's a lot of pros. You don't get pigeonholed, but it's the ego came up in that conversation with that stranger. It was like, do I stand for nothing? Like, who am I then? Like, it felt, and when it's like, what is the topic? What's the theme today? It's so hard to define, which is very freeing. But recently I've been feeling my ego kind of get frustrated of like, dude, who are you then? Yeah.
What's your label?
Yeah.
You don't have to have a label.
Yeah, you don't have to. It's just it's harder work.
But it's a good marketing. It's good for marketing to have a label. Like, you want to be able to
present yourself as something that fits inside a box that people can understand so they can remember it.
Yeah.
But other than for that, you have multiple identities.
Yeah. Well, we all do, for
And,
sure. It allows for transitioning very fluidly. Like, I think that's why I'm able to switch very quickly. It's like, okay, I was definitely a climber this winter, but now it's sunny outside. Like, why would I be climbing in the gym? I might climb outside, but I'm definitely going to be swimming and cycling. So I'm a cyclist now. I don't really know. So it allows me to very appropriately, like literally seasonally adapt, because I'm not attached to anything with that fluidity. So that's the massive advantage for sure. Yeah. It's very freeing. I have no baggage. I'm not anchored to anything. So I have full permission to wake up tomorrow. And I literally do this. It's like, if I ask myself, what is it that I believe in? What do I stand for? What am I really after in this given day? And I can adapt that every single day because I'm able to keep asking myself. It's like a software update. Like I update my Mac every day, basically, mentally. So it's in sync with reality, which is cool.
I think what makes this episode a bit different is that we connected personally before. We don't even connect professionally, technically.
Yeah.
And a lot of people that come on the podcast, they're professionals in some field that we bring on the podcast so we can learn more about their expertise that's related to our business somehow or not, and learn about their journey. But this time, it's a friend I'm having on the podcast, but not any kind of friend, one with whom I have amazing conversations all the time, who's like very deep, who thinks a lot, and who has great ideas to share. And I thought we should record one of these conversations because I think our audience would really benefit from it and would really enjoy it and would really think a lot after this episode from what we might talk about today. And we don't really know what we're going to do yet.
Yeah.
But if we're going to put a professional label on you, I think everything you've done professionally so far turns a lot around teaching and helping people better themselves and help people grow and think.
Yeah.
So before you did TKS, you were a high school teacher?
Yeah. And before that, I was a management consultant. Yeah.
You've been a management consultant?
Did you not know that?
No.
Oh, yeah. That's why a big expertise of mine is hard pivots, small pivots too, but yeah.
And was that your specialty when you were a management consultant? Pivots?
I became a specialist of pivots so I could leave management consulting. But
became a specialist of your own pivots.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, man, it's so hard to, if I'm being honest with myself, like take credit. Like I really just stumbled upon coaching myself somehow. I think Tim Ferriss in my ears, listened to podcasts over those years. This is 10 years ago now, 2016. Like felt a lot of friction showing up to consulting. I just graduated at that point. It was the dream, It's like, what is success?
You had just graduated from
business school.
From business.
So it's like,
man, I have some black spots in your story. I'm glad we can patch things up today.
Yeah, man. Well, that was, I think, the biggest lesson, very forcefully, because of kind of desperation of like feeling very unfulfilled, feeling very hopeless about, is this my future? Because this is not fun. I see the people at the office and maybe it works for them, but it's hard to admire a lot of them. The people I do admire, they're also feeling the friction. Like I had a great director. He was the brother of David Siegel, like who created David's Tea, Charles Siegel. If he's gonna watch this, like amazing man, amazing father, and also an amazing founder now. He helped a lot, but so he was a gem in a gold mine, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Not a lot of people have felt like we're honoring their authenticity and having to wear a mask to be able to survive, to make the money that they're supposed to make through their salary, through this job. I was like, there's got to be another option, because like there's got to be more to life than this.
But you were saying he was an example of somebody not wearing a mask,
Exactly,
like bringing out his full authenticity.
Yeah,
and that was an example to you.
Yeah. So it showed me actually exactly like he gave me a glimmer of hope, like what's possible. He didn't last long in consulting either, for that reason. And so I ended up getting myself to, what is it that I believe in? Like, why is there this friction and this idea of, values and actions needing to align? Whatever you believe in, if you're doing something else day to day, there's a misalignment that creates a lot of suffering, I think.
Yeah.
And so I was like 21, all these ideas going through my head, usually shower thoughts. And eventually I had to, I reached a point where it was kind of rock bottom. It's like something has to change. So I left and I went to teachers college. Yeah. Because,
What called you to teachers college?
yeah. So it's like, it's, I think important to go very high level and abstract, but then also tangible. So on a high level, it was like, I love communicating. I love empowering others. At that point, I was doing a lot of experiments. So I didn't know I wanted to be a teacher. What's the way to find out was to ask whatever school was around, public school, can I just like observe? And then can I eventually assist? Can I maybe teach a lesson? So I got a feel for it instead of guessing what that was going to be, because there's a huge cost if I switch
Yeah.
to leave consulting and I then also don't like teaching. The best way to understand
So
what
you
it
went
feels
straight to being on the ground.
That's it.
And see what the experience is
Yeah.
like.
Yeah, experiment.
clever.
That's it. There are a few other experiments like being at L'Arche, a home for people with intellectual and physical disabilities. And I started understanding like there's a depth to life. And I still hold this to be true, that especially a lot of people in the tech world that they don't even know exists, or if they do, it's like unrelatable, or they don't understand how to access it. There's a profoundness, that a richness that life has to offer that I didn't know was there until I was doing these small experiments and volunteering. And then that informed becoming a teacher. So it was like on a high level feeling that, but then also on a tangible level, it was I don't have to be on a screen most of the day. That was really actually important for me.
It's true.
Yeah, it's like
It's one of the big perks of being a teacher.
very big perk. Yeah,
Standing
yeah,
and not being in front of a screen.
yeah, moving
Wow.
around, intentional conversation constantly with people. Whether they want to learn or not. But actually, the funnest part is when they don't want to learn. It's like kind of this human engineering. So, yeah, that's what happened.
So that's where you discovered your identity.
At that time, yeah, it was a new chapter, and I was forging an identity. But that's when I got into meditation. Actually, the reason I got into meditation was that turmoil with consulting was transferring to my which is now a marriage, very young relationship. I don't know if my mom thought it was going to turn into a marriage, but we were just dating, me and Jenny, for a couple months at that point, and I realized I was hurting her with my anger. And I was like, this doesn't make sense. This is someone who I clearly care about in that moment, like still like the most in the whole world. But I was hurting her, a lot of time with my words, nothing else. And I was like, why am I doing this? How is this happening? And by chance, I got introduced to meditation. I'm Indian, not through a family member, not through any ancestry, but through a bald white man named Tim Ferriss talking about headspace.
Oh yeah, he's the one who introduced you to
Yeah,
meditation.
out of all
love it.
the opportunities, because Indians don't really
Man,
meditate.
I love how big a fan of Tim Ferriss is. Like I've yet to meet someone who is as big a fan of Tim Ferriss as I am, and like that's like probably one of the ways we connected. Like very early, like you wanted to tell the story how we met, or maybe we can wait till you're done with talking about meditation.
Yeah.
But like
Yeah,
we
yeah, yeah.
mentioned Tim Ferriss in the first like 30 minutes we
Yeah.
talked, I think.
Yeah. I almost hate how so many of my eggs have gone into that basket that is Tim Ferriss. If there's an identity, it's like being a
He's
Tim
a
Ferriss
great-
disciple.
He's a great guy.
But he's so
just-
diverse
Oh,
himself,
yeah.
right? So it's like you go to this one place and you're getting a diversity of thought and beliefs. It's that are effervescent. He's always changing, which is why I respect him so much. And he's taught me a lot. But no, so I started meditating, and then within a month, because it takes a month to really feel anything, or for other people that you care about to notice a difference.
What kind of meditation you were doing?
I was just keep it simple, So it was just Headspace at the time.
Awareness meditation.
Just Headspace. Yeah.
Right.
Like literally Headspace trial.
Guided
Yeah.
guided meditations.
Yeah. And then she
Watch
noticed a
the
change.
cars passing by on the highway.
Yeah, the clouds, the sky, all that stuff.
Yeah.
The basics. And I think, there's a concept of in Zen meditation of beginner's mind. Like those are timeless, going back to those basics all the time.
Are you like referring to Zen mind, beginner's mind, the book?
Yeah, Zen Buddhism in general. It's like the beginner's mind is a really core concept. So I go back to the basics. I always tell my students and my coaching clients, like, no need to complicate it. Like the breath is the teacher. We can't master the breath in our whole lifetime. So there's no need to complicate it. You can if you're curious, but if it feels intimidating, like literally just following the breath, which is how we got to know each other. We'll get into that. But coming back to the meditation, that allowed me to understand myself, and it transferred to, being able to actually catch my anger, the anger evaporating a lot. My now wife realized that transformation, and that insight into who I was and what gets me going on a feelings basis as well allowed me to actually have the clarity of consulting's not right for me, and what does it look like to jump ship, and the real stuff that, like, to make it real, because this is all very kind of metaphysical right now. It's like, who is deciding the way I should live my life? It wasn't me at that point. And for a lot of young people at 20, it's not them. It's society, it's their parents, it's their peer group to fit in, because, we're tribal. We need to make sure we fit in with whoever we're around. That's what was making me decide what I wear, what I eat, what career I'm doing, what are my goals, what kind of car I want, that I even want a car. And undoing that, unlearning, that's what it's all about, is unlearning, Then you have open space and then you can fill it up dynamically. But undoing all that conditioning allowed me to kind of become, for the first time, somewhat identityless, and then let whatever naturally I resonate with to fill me up.
And you did all of that, like, as I don't know what the word is in English for that, but autodidact. Like, you've learned all of this by yourself.
Yeah.
And how did you set out to unlearn? Like, how did you figure out first what you had learned that was wrong? Like, what was your process?
I have a short, probably unsatisfying answer, which again, I tell a lot of my students and coaching clients, is you just got to meditate. Like, I think we love this idea, especially in the West, that we're just so used to seeking a solution,
finding the answers
That's
externally.
And I think we talked about this. It's like, okay, what's the book I need to buy? What's the app, I need to register for? What's that thing I can buy off Amazon just for the
But
quick
I'm not
fix?
talking about a guide or a book, but
Right.
a teacher maybe. Like, it's hard to get out of your patterns, of even noticing your patterns without a mirror or or a bouncing wall, like something to give you an image of where you are at by yourself, like just internally.
Yeah. So there's two facets. So still about, like, if I just meditate for 100 hours versus, because that's the hard thing we all know we should be doing, but we don't want to do. So it's like, okay, can I like find a teacher that makes it easier or something? And that's fair. But eventually, like, there's no replacement for hundreds of hours of meditation. And that's what I got to do in this period of transition after I left consulting. But the second piece that you're getting after that mirror, that is my life partner. I always say it's like the best decision you can make. There's like decisions we can make, high leverage decisions, or very kind of low leverage, like what cereal I'm going to eat. Or you see this a lot with, like, kind of Eastern medicine, or like people that are trying to, I don't know, they're pulling on small levers. I see it within my family. It's like, what toothpaste am I using? Today I had ibuprofen because I injured myself with climbing. I used to be against any sort of, it's like, that's not going to change my health span if I take ibuprofen once, every few months. I don't think. But who I'm going to choose as a life partner, is that choice. Everything has fallen downstream from that. It affected everything. That one choice has dictated all the success in my life. Probably exaggerating a little bit, but to a large extent. And then that influences my health way more than any holistic diet or whatever, dude. Because I can show up at home and be fully myself, no mask, and have someone that calls me out compassionately, but also on my bullshit, and then allows me to keep staying true to myself. Yeah, a lot of my success. There's always a hero. There's always an unsung hero behind the scenes. And I think for a lot of men, a lot of anyone, but definitely men, is like there are incredible women behind their successes, and they're too humble. They're so humble. They're so humble, and that's something I learned with my wife's pregnancy, her delivery, having a kid is. No, women are beasts, man. They just aren't loud and exaggerated like men, so we don't realize. But if men gave birth, we would find out how hard it is and how heroic it is.
You're just making me realize that in my own relationship, like Juliet has such great intuition, like, and she's discovering it through starting her own business, and all the decisions she makes, like, I find are such good decisions, and she always follows her intuition, but she doesn't challenge me enough on that. And I feel like she, by respect or by not wanting to enter too much my bubble, like you're making me realize that she has great intuition and I want it in my life. And I think I'm gonna invite her to challenge me a lot more.
Yeah.
Not on like keeping the counters clean and stuff like that, but like major things in
Maybe
life.
that's the thing you got to do.
Like, I should listen to her more.
Yeah.
She'll listen to that. She'll like that. But I should listen to her more on the major things of life, because I also have a great partner and she doesn't voice it enough.
You do have a
And
great
it's
partner.
and I'm glad to hear that you listen to your partner and she talks to you and she tells you
Yeah.
the serious stuff.
Yeah. Well, like
Calling you on your bullshit, like you're saying.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I've been saying like provocatively, but like a big theme is a big problem with women is that they're so awesome, actually. Like Jenny is a very direct, fiery Lebanese woman with so much love. But I have to give her permission as well. There is this natural kind of disposition I think we have as men is whether it's aggressive or kind of whatever testosterone based masculine energy. It's like we do have to create the space to invite Jenny to actually share what she has to share with me. So I directly have asked her, like, tell me how I'm wrong, like, what am I missing, what's my blind spot, like, am I out of line? And that invitation, and of course, out of a relationship, we do that with anyone, with your employees, with Gabrielle, with our children. And I did that a lot as a teacher. I think and we'll talk about education, but taking children seriously, treating them this multiplicity, we have to have multiplicity. So at the same time, treating them the way we would treat a peer, but also at the simultaneously acknowledging that they're a child. And it would be kind of weird if they had full decision over what to eat when they're 4 years old, because they don't really know much about nutrition. How do you hold those two things together? It's really hard. But I would ask my students when I was teaching grade 1 at one point, 6-year-olds. That's another story.
Wow.
I would be like, does this make sense to you? Like, how does this add up? Tell me what I'm missing. They'd get caught off guard, like day
Nobody
one.
asks them.
They didn't know how to respond. But after a month, after 3 months, they gained this skill of independent thinking. And it's because I as an authority figure, as a teacher, it was my responsibility to create that opportunity for them. It's not going to naturally come,
So how would you explain that? Like that, what you've done there is like exactly what you'd expect from a good teacher or a good coach. I don't know if you'd agree with that, but it's like creating an environment and giving permission and encouraging people to think for themselves and find solutions, but like guiding them through that. Like, well, I just answered the question for you, but,
No, but
I'd like to hear it in your own words.
Yeah.
Like, what makes a good teacher?
Yeah. Okay. That was not the question I was expecting. That's a big question. I'll try to answer
It's a big
that.
question, but like, do
Yeah.
what you can. Like,
Yeah.
around this idea of allowing them to think for themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. And you said, does it apply to coaching as well? Like, big philosophy of my coaching is exactly that, is to not indoctrinate, which you see with some really bad coaches, is they are pushing their own philosophies onto their clients. It's like, how do I actually create the skill for my clients to think for themselves and for them to define what success means to them and what fulfillment actually looks like according to just them. Like N of one, how do you come up with that? So to create that for, the same thing applies in a classroom setting or what I do at TKS with the most ambitious teenagers in the world, to have that independent thinking. The first foremost, I think the ingredient is trust. It's like, do you even trust their ability? Because if you don't think they have the ability, you're going to coddle them. You're going to treat them. You're going to micromanage whatever it is.
You're going to protect them.
You're going to protect them. Exactly. Which is well intentioned, but there's an insecurity. And the opposite of trust is fear, I think. And so
by protecting them, you're showcasing insecurity.
You're fearful. Yeah. What are you protecting them from?
And you're going to make them insecure in the end.
Yeah. You're scared of something. You're scared they won't be able to take care of themselves. You're scared that they are going to be, lacking the proper, support to get through something because they're not capable yet, whatever it is.
Being overprotective comes from a place of insecurity.
And this is something.
And that's what you're actually giving your child.
Yeah.
Or the child you're teaching.
Yeah.
You're giving them insecurity.
Yeah. I learned that by reading Awareness by Anthony DeMello.
Oh, what a great book.
Yeah.
You have to read that 100 times though before you get the whole thing.
And it's a different book every time. It's so crazy. Short book, very easy read. Highly recommend it. That was the first time I actually realized, like, especially in terms of child-parent relationship, for me personally, what it seems like and is very idolized, especially in Asian cultures, of being very protective is synonymous for being very loving. But actually, especially studying Buddhism, it's like there's an attachment there. And because there's an over-attachment to the child, speaking of identity, there's a huge identity piece of, I am this mother that cares and has prioritized the child over me, right? I'm not wearing the oxygen mask, I'm putting it on the child. You can imagine it's actually not very responsible. That's actually not the most loving thing for the kid. If you genuinely care about them, you think about it, to put them in the best position, you have to be in the best position yourself. And so to see how protecting someone was actually rooted in insecurity and fear versus a trust and a loving relationship, that was huge. And in an education or coaching perspective, the flourishing, I mean, we can imagine now, right? Intuitively, as I talk about this, someone is flourishing when they have that autonomy, and that trust from whatever mentor or guide. You all of a sudden have the space for extreme ownership in your life. And that's a whole other topic, is extreme ownership. Like, when we had our kid this past year, I wanted to give Jenny the freedom because she really wanted to be that mother that, like, is fully in. So I didn't want to overstep. I wanted her to have the opportunity until when she goes back to work. And for me, it was hard. I didn't feel like an owner. It's hard for there to be two cooks, two chefs in the kitchen. So I gave her that space, but then I felt, we use this line in our household, like I was the soldier, So I would show up, after kind of the shift beginning, and I'd be like, soldier, what's there to do? But I didn't feel a sense of ownership. So I didn't really know, what is it that needs to be made for breakfast for our child, etc. I felt disconnected.
Because you were putting all the responsibility on her shoulder.
Yeah, and that made sense at the time because she wanted that. But then now she went back to work, I became an owner, and now I am extra motivated. Like, I am excited of what is the menu for my child and doing the groceries accordingly. And from an education or a human empowerment perspective, it's like, how do you actually unlock that for someone else? It is trust, so that they feel like an owner. And that's happening with a lot of young adults right now. There is this very slow transition of getting into the real world. And so they aren't taking these huge risks.
Yeah, and that's probably why we'll complain that they're not driven enough.
Yeah.
And when you take the decision, doing the thing is a lot more exciting than when you're doing based off the instruction of somebody else.
Yeah.
I think what's exciting is the challenge of seeing what the result's going to be. You've made that call. You're going to do that action. What's going to be the result? Is it going to work? Is it not going to work? Was that the right decision? Yeah. And it just adds so many layers to what you're doing than if you just been a soldier and did what you were told.
Yeah, you're just reporting for duty. Yeah, my mind always goes to like the inversion model. It's like, okay, but yeah, that's ideal. So why is that not happening? And coming back to the protectionism, like framing it in a more kind of real world, it seems so non-threatening, but the safety and security that a lot of children in the developed world have, and then when they become young adults, especially like after college or university, to know, like if you have a trust fund, you aren't gonna take a lot of risks, or maybe you might because you know you
Aren't?
have that backup,
Yeah.
but to feel like you have to make it work, like any successful project or startup is happening because you get into that extra gear. That's not going to happen unless you know you need to do it. And so this security blanket that you know is going to kind of catch you, you're like, it's okay. I think I'm good. So safety and security, I think, is actually quite detrimental after a certain point. Like there's enough, and
Hmm.
we'll talk about the enough point, that threshold. Anything past enough, overabundance, I think it ends up making us very complacent because also the daily habits, it's like if you have so much comfort, it's really hard to leave your very comfortable couch on your 70-inch TV watching Netflix. You can try to discipline yourself, but it's going to be a very forceful to leave that
Hmm.
versus you couldn't have those luxuries that are excess, in my opinion. And you have a home without a TV, you have a very basic couch, maybe just a chair, you're living in a smaller place. Yeah, you're naturally going to read a book, probably. You're going to go for walks, you're going to talk to more people on the street. And I think that's where the growth comes in, and the environment we design intentionally through constraint actually is a very much enabling instead of disenabling.
So, how do you raise children to be driven, autonomous individuals in an environment of abundance? Because,
Yeah,
like,
I'm figuring that out now.
even with the big screen TV and the couch, like, even without that, we live in very abundant societies. Like, we take a lot of things for granted already. We don't even notice.
Oh
So,
man.
we already live in major material abundance. So, let's say you're a successful entrepreneur, like you worked hard for building that material success for yourself, putting spiritual things aside, like you achieve that material success and you want to raise driven children.
Yep.
Like,
Mhm.
what's the process here? You've been with so many young adults or young children, like
Yeah.
what would you say is the key?
Driven is like a loaded term because, do you think like driven synonymous for ambitious, perhaps?
No, but hungry,
Yeah.
excited
Yeah.
for life.
So,
Not necessarily ambitious, but I feel like when you've been spoon fed,
yeah.
you're not as curious.
Yeah.
But you want your kids to be curious,
Yeah.
to feel that there's so much out there.
Yeah. So what comes to mind, and for me, it's like thinking about ambition is like, what is it driven by? Or if you're hungry, what are you hungry for? Like, what's the underlying motivation? And that's a very, very powerful outcome of meditation
Hmm.
is you understand your underlying beliefs and motivations. So if someone is motivated and very hungry because of scarcity, right? So you see a lot of successful people come out of impoverished households.
Hmm.
That makes sense short term. What we don't hear a lot of times is the undoing, or we come back to unlearning once they have it all materially. And there's a lot of damage that has to be undone and recover from. So like I get it, like short term, that is very impressive, and I admire that a lot in that one dimension. But holistically, if you're not coming from an impoverished household and you have some sort of comfort, what is driving you? If it's insecurity, right? So maybe it's not money, but if you're insecure about the status or how smart you are, how you come off, that might work short term, but I think long term it's going to lead to some sort of damage. So that's just like a word of caution. Is I actually am very careful now working with very young, ambitious people. And also now my coaching practice working with people that I see, I'm coaching people that have done the ambitious thing, that are trying to shift into some part of their self that honors all aspects of their life. Is if the underlying mechanism is pure, if you're actually doing something because you're genuinely interested in it, I think, yeah, short term, it might not lead to the craziest valuation of your startup, but you're going to do that thing for 40 years and you're not going to hurt yourself, or you're going to hurt yourself a lot less that way. And that intrinsic, so internal, ambition or internal reasons to be excited about something versus externally being excited because it's a means to an end, to get that wealth, to get that status or prestige, to fill up whatever insecurity. Those are very, very different things. So how to raise a kid to be like genuinely intrinsically curious, role modeling. I think it's role modeling. Like I'm intentionally not reading parenting books. But I hear of different philosophies, and there's this idea of taking children seriously by David Deutsch. Naval has recently talked about it. So you hear these different things, but it seems like it all boils down to, which we never want to hear, is like, comes back to me as the parent. It's like I would love to read a template of what I need to tell the kid to do. But if I'm eating healthy, if I'm curious about that plant there or what books are here and I flip through them, the kid's going to see that. So I don't have to somehow engineer my child to love reading. That's hard. I actually have no idea how to figure that out. My tactic is, if I love reading, my kid's going to love reading only if they respect me. Right? So it's like, again, hyper accountability, extreme ownership of me. And if I am owning my decisions, my actions, and I have a pure motivation and it's full of love and good intention, I think it's really hard to mess up. Yeah. And we will. And we probably, both of us definitely have messed up in different ways. But the big mess up, I don't think it's going to happen. I think we will create very curious children.
Yeah. Giving yourself as an example and trying to be the best version of yourself as an example for your your children. For sure, that's like, you can't go wrong with that. But I do think you need to take the hand of someone to show a person or a kid what's out there also. Like, you
Tell me,
can't
man. I'm learning, right? My kid's only 1 year old. I need to learn from you.
I'm still clueless. Like, but I feel that you can't just be passive. There's also something like, my mom would put me in a class, and like, I was not attracted to go to that class. It didn't come from me, and she didn't take such classes neither. But she would put me in an arts class, and I would meet all these new kids and learn new skills and figure out I like doing arts. You see,
So you ended up liking that.
Yeah, maybe, I don't know.
Right.
Like, none of my parents are visual artists, but I ended up loving visual arts, or I've always done some, and I'm very, very motivated and driven towards that. Like, I love doing it. It comes to me. But what happened when I was a kid, like, it didn't come as models from my parents.
Yeah.
But maybe it's something they've put on my way to show me that, I enjoy it. I don't know. Reading, yeah, you can read in front of your children as an example, but if you don't open a book with them and read to them and help them get there, I don't think it's gonna work. So there is an active aspect to teaching also than just being a model. See, an example that I like is classical art or modern art especially. Like, if you don't, because modern art doesn't tell a story as much as classical art.
Okay.
Like,
I'm not an artist.
Modern art's more about abstract stuff, okay? Concepts.
Yeah.
You need to be told what was going on with this movement, what were they trying to express through this type of art to really enjoy. You need some basic education to enjoy modern art, which makes it a very posh type of art because it's not accessible. Because without this basic education, you're going to look at colored squares on a paint, on a canvas, and be like, I could have done that myself. What's the interest here? It's not the actual painting, it's the idea that was being véhiculé through this art. So that's an example of where somebody needs to take your hand to really make you enjoy it. Or it's like acquired tastes. Like, if like you don't like coffee initially, if nobody like shows you why it's enjoyable and all the craft behind it, you're probably never gonna enjoy coffee. Like there's an intellectual aspect behind it.
Yeah.
So I feel like there's something we need to do, but I haven't figured out what and to what extent. Because
Yeah.
like if you take your kids' hands too much,
Yeah.
you're not letting them discover the world by themselves. So there's like a fine line somewhere.
It's really tricky. Yeah, these fine lines are super interesting. These dualities, because if you, yeah, I don't know. I don't know how it's going to work out. As a parent, I want to create that liberty and that space, freedom of choice for her. But if I'm completely passive, like you're mentioning, then who is leading her? So how do you lead? Not just by example and let the person do it, but again, keeping in mind they're a kid, right? So they need some sort of direct guidance.
Yeah.
We'll see what that looks like, man. That's a
Like
really
they
good
can't
point.
learn to tie their shoes by themselves.
Yeah.
You need to show them first.
Yeah.
And they won't want to tie their shoes
Yeah.
initially. They won't. Maybe some will be curious because they've seen you tie your shoes and they were like, how do you do that?
Yeah.
Probably the other ones are just going to be more interested in playing with their trucks.
Yeah.
And they'll never learn how to tie their shoes and they'll end up with scratches for their entire life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like there is an element of taking them by the hand.
I wonder how much of it is like if we are become kids ourselves. So like accompaniment in their path. Like I envision my dream is we'll see how this plays out, to learn like piano, because I've never learned piano, never had music lessons or anything. I want that. Like the big void in my life is music, learning how to play, because I love music.
I'm going through the exact same thing.
Really?
I've started playing guitar at the beginning of the year,
mentioned.
just for the exact same reason. Music's been a big part of my life, but I've never learned how to play it. And I want this for Tom.
So what I'm getting at, what do you think about like if he takes lessons? So if you get an instructor, I have no idea how this works. I never did it. I think you get an instructor to come at your house maybe for a lesson.
Yeah.
And you take the lesson with Tom.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think that's amazing. But to your point, you need the direct, like someone has to hire the instructor and have to pick what instrument,
Mm-hmm.
But I think, something I'm really excited about is to learn with my kid. So again, that role modeling, but like very active curiosity. I think tying your shoes, if you're really interested about like, wait, there's 2 different ways to tie your shoe. How does it create the same knot?
There's 2 different ways.
There actually is. Yeah, there's the bunny ear method. There's the loop.
Oh, right.
It's like, how does
I
that
didn't
lead to the
learn
same
both.
knot? Is there a better knot? Literally that, dude. That's how kids think. If you're genuinely curious like that, I think they're going to be very interested in what's going on with the laces. But what people don't talk about in education, parenting, it's okay. I mean, but it's kind of weird because like you don't get to choose who your parents are. You're born with them. But you're ascribing to their philosophies, because you're a kid, you absorb it. You're very impressionable. And so whatever their philosophy is, like whatever my beliefs are around nutrition or what books I think are worth reading or what activities, that's my set of beliefs. I naturally, there's no other way. You have to lead. My child's going to absorb that. She's going to absorb that.
Mm-hmm.
As a teacher, as an educator, what's very interesting, even the math class, man, like how much of it is multiple choice? What is the wording for the word problem? That is a set of beliefs and personal philosophy that is intertwined with education. So as much as we think the curriculum is objective, the selection and the choices of the material and the design of the curriculum and the lessons, that is like actually deeply subjective, I think. And so hiring the right teachers, like right now, it's really unattractive to be a teacher. We need teachers with good taste and judgment, because their subjectivity, the taste, is really that dictates a lot of the choices and what the education looks like. Yeah.
Are you gonna put your girl in a public school or private school, or are you planning on homeschooling her? Do you have a plan already, or are you still thinking about this?
I mean, on a meta level, this is where our conversation was going to go. We're always going to be a little bit meta. I try not to plan too much because I don't know what the step's going to look like. I don't know what it's like for her to be 5 because I don't know what she's like when she's 4. So I'm not going to think about that. I'm going to be very attuned to where she's at right now and the next step to come. trusting my intuition, kind of like rock climbing, or hiking.
So you're not there yet.
I'm not there yet. That said, actually comes back to how do you keep a kid grounded when there is undeniable like material abundance, and we're gonna have that in our household. I'll talk about how we design that, but for her education, I grew up, through the public school system. I'm a really big believer in it, and while I was a public school teacher, I saw academic achievement. One of the biggest correlations, real world, I've ever seen in my life is whatever that household situation was. Even if it's a single parent, there were some kids that didn't have parents and just had the grandma. If they was stable and consistent, those kids would thrive. Like we can really put a lot of value, and there is a lot of value on the teachers and the curriculum. It's public versus private, but it's again hyper accountability. That's the good news, is as parents, it's so much of the household. Even though so few hours are spent with us compared to at school, it's like a full-time job, school. It's crazy how much that dictates everything else. It's kind of like meditation. It's 10 minutes, but it affects 24 hours, or 16 hours. Our few hours with our kids dictate what is going to happen directly in their classroom, dictates exactly their mind space on a test and their confidence in themselves. So I want her to be grounded, right? So how does she stay kind of with a head on her shoulders? I think is public school. How do we do that is a positive constraint. So positive constraints are things that like I'm intentionally imposing that create positive outcomes. So we, for example, are engineering our life so that we are going to both work a little bit less so that we have more time with our daughter. But the outcome of that is that we are going to be not rich. We're going to have enough. I'm not going to sacrifice our household, but we're going to have definitely enough and not much more past that. A little bit of breathing room, but that means she can't afford the luxurious private school, right? But she's going to have time with us. That means I can directly actually educate her, at least part-time. That means we can build projects together. That means she has one-on-one attention with an educator.
Back when you were a teacher, could you take your child out for one day or a week? Like, did you have this? Did the parents have this freedom to take them away for a trip anytime, or just send them to school part-time? Like, was an option?
It's been a few years since I've taught, like half a decade, but I remember a couple of kids, they'd be kind of missing on Fridays. I was like, a new teacher, so I didn't exactly have an understanding of what's going on everywhere. But I would, this kid's missing again. It's always Friday, half day. So you can pull your kid out. And they were going to forest school. And
Nice.
I didn't really know what that was. Happens to be like one of the kids was my neighbor because I was living near the school. And his mom was actually running the forest school. And I asked her a lot. And it is just exposure to develop what a lot of schools are failing to manufacture is resilience. And this kind of real world common sense missing education, you get that in the forest. The kid goes to the forest, and this was also, I heard Chris Sacca talk about this, which is inspiring. He's a great parent, it seems like. How do you teach your kid to be resilient? They get a scratch in the woods, their knee's bleeding. What do you have? You got some dirt. You rub some dirt in your knee. Lo and behold, it's good enough. You're good. You're stronger. Your body is way more tough than you think. It affected you mentally and emotionally a lot less than you thought. And it goes on. And time goes on.
I think that would be like the best combination of having a curriculum that is decided for you, that you have to navigate through, and you don't get to make all the decision, but that's life also. And that's living in a society. Like, and you're not going to live alone in the woods where you make all your decisions. Like this, like you have to learn how to go through constraints like that. But at the same time, like best case scenario, it would be half of the time in school and the other half out in the woods or on a farm, and just doing things that are close to the ground, close to nature, and mostly like you get to pick what you do a lot. Like children-led education.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like, how do you have a structure, but within it, it's unstructured or it's free. You have a
Yeah, we're gonna go milk the cows. Like, you don't have to come.
Yeah.
But if you're curious to know how we milk the cows, like you get to come.
Yeah.
Or you can go,
choose
your
your own
bike.
adventure.
That's it.
Yeah. And of course, we're talking a lot about nature, but it goes to, the soup kitchen for the mission down the street, whatever it is, it's this exposure
Yeah.
so that because more and more, it used to be the four walls of the classroom you would feel insulated in. Now it's more and more the black mirror that you feel like that is your world. The phone really feels like the primary world for children. Obviously, that's not true, or at least there's a really negative ramification. So how do you just get in touch with the real world that unfortunately they don't have all the exposure to? And there's a lot of reasons, some cities are not safe and it's a whole systemic issue, but how do we do our part so that they have that exposure? Yeah.
And what about what would you one of the things that I'm a little worried with public schools or even private schools is the size of the classes are so large. Children don't get to really learn at their own pace. It makes learning a lot less interesting, I find, in that format, especially when they can't have their own pace. So if it's too fast, it's going to be very hard for them to enjoy it and to be curious about it because they just can't catch up. Yeah. If it's too slow, it also gets boring and they'll tune out. And when you have 30 student classes, there's just one pace and there's just one way to learn. And yes, it's good that they're learning to live through these constraints and learn what boredom is or learn what being challenged is. But at the same time, they're not learning as much as they could. Mm-hmm. You're not optimizing their learning.
I guess it's what are we setting up for kids to learn? Because I think the schools, it made sense. It was all knowledge acquisition before, mm-hmm. You had to learn math because how else are you going to do math? I need to do math. I don't have any other device to do it for me. Okay, there's a calculator, but still I don't know physics, but it looks like whatever they're doing can't really be done on a calculator, 30 years ago. So they had to figure it out with the chalkboard and stuff. But knowledge is free. Knowledge is in abundance, overabundance, right? So the value of knowledge is close to zero because it's become completely commoditized through AI now. Mm-hmm. But the school is still teaching knowledge. So now what kids are learning is in direct competition or can be directly replaced by AI.
Technology.
So there is zero value.
But what about the learning how to learn?
That's it.
And again, in a program that is not dense enough, they might get bored. They might not learn how to learn enough.
Yeah.
They might not be challenged enough.
Yeah.
Or in the right way, or it's not customized enough.
It comes back to the independent thinking. Yeah. It's if it's self-guided, look, logistically, I get it. I was a teacher. It's hard if you are customizing the whole school experience.
It's impossible.
It feels very impossible. I think the way it might get at least partially feasible, approximate to it, is if we eradicate these very concrete, rigid outcomes, right? The kid needs to know this multiplication by this date in this grade. I don't know if that's relevant anymore, And so that's the hard part is how do you make sure every kid hits that multiplication goal? I don't think that's relevant. If it's more relevant of did the kid exemplify agency? Did they actually show some sort of, is there an output? Is there some sort of website? Did they build a website with any sort of tool? Mm-hmm. If it's more output based in terms of projects and creation, I think that's actually quite much more manageable from my experience to actually have a customized approach for every kid. Because project based, maybe you heard the story about there's a amazing young woman. She's 19 years old at Waterloo. She got hired for a position that didn't exist at Shopify. She built the tool. She recorded herself pitching the tool. Very high production, but there's so many tools that exist. All of this was in less than 24 hours. And the way the internet works, Toby, Harley, the executives at Shopify, top dogs, they saw her work in less than 24 hours. She got an interview, she got hired for a position that didn't even exist. They were just I want someone that is exemplifying high agency, extreme ownership, and making things happen, this incredible conviction that she is capable in herself. And then you get the opportunity. That's the real world now, right? And so the school is not built for that anymore. Yeah, we need to adjust. And it happens through projects.
So why sending them to school at all?
It's a great question, man. Yeah. I'm realizing you're making me realize some dissonance for the public. So I think there's different ages. Like,
What's the goal of school then?
yeah, there is one thing that's highly irreplaceable by school. I don't know if you feel the same. It's like the social aspect, because there is this huge moment of unschooling. But then what, And there's different goals. For me personally, I really believe in the human side. I'm connecting a lot with.
And is there a social dynamic that's exclusive to a school?
Maybe not. Communities, right? Communities of diverse set of beliefs it's captured in something like public school is designed because you have a lot of people from various backgrounds. It's open to all, regardless of their socioeconomic status or any geographical limitations.
I like that.
That's really interesting
It's true.
because,
If you were to build a homeschooling community or an unschooling community, chances are it's going to be people that are like you.
it's pretty homogenous.
Well, school is definitely very diverse.
Yeah. That's interesting. Like my goal is very different though than let's say, Duvall talks about unschooling. I think we have very different goals. And that's why you didn't know about my professional background. I don't really care about people's professional background. It's interesting. I just care about the human behind it. We're in a world where the human aspect is becoming, because knowledge is commoditized, you can either build tools and double down on the digital world, or there's this whole other dimension that I think is extremely undervalued, and we're going to increasingly value it when it's missing and we're reactive as humans, is the humanness. And so I want to set up my daughter to be really good at being a human. And it's harder and harder right now. The environment and the circumstances are making that very difficult. I think something as humbling as public school and the street skills, man. You have street skills, right? You talk to my grandpa who immigrated, who has barely any education, who absolutely made it. You're able to connect with an old Indian man that barely speaks English.
I don't know how I managed that.
He loves you. He loves you, because you talked like a human. You weren't in your own little bubble. And that ability to connect with anyone on any dimension is really hard to create. I think that's the big thing going for school right now still. It doesn't have to be school, any community with a diverse set of beliefs. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know.
There's
how we
probably a way
manufacture
to engineer that
I wonder.
outside of school.
Yeah.
Still.
Yeah.
I still believe you can create your own program and not need school, but
I agree.
that's probably one of the greatest. You don't get to pick the teachers, so that also will create a diversity in terms of like the teachers have a big, and it's like Denis was saying on his episode when he came. That's our neuro coach.
Yeah.
He was saying it's equally important to have coherent experiences as it is to get incoherent experiences. Like you need the incoherence in your life to understand what is coherent for you. So having bad teachers, having bad classmates, having bad experiences in school, having like the whole mix of life experiences is all important to have.
Yeah.
Boredom, like inefficiency, like whatever like the negative aspects of school there could be. If you're trying to engineer these things out of the education program of your child, you're removing it's an opportunity. It's a missed opportunity for some more learning and more diverse learning.
Yeah.
So let's not try to over-optimize things.
Yeah. Yeah. Unoptimizing is a thing. It can get a little bit ironic if you're optimizing for unoptimizing. But yeah. Let's just relax a little bit.
Yeah.
Everything's okay. Like you said, right? It's an important mantra.
I'd have more questions for you about education, but I think we should maybe move on to a different topic.
I'm good with anything, man.
And I feel like I'd love to hear you talk more about your, before we get to the coaching, because that's like the meat of this episode that I really want to get into and see what kind of coaching you do and what's the typical, because like on this audience, on this podcast, it's mostly entrepreneurs coming on
Yeah.
with their own challenges.
Yeah.
And I think the audience is also composed of a lot of entrepreneurs or self-employed people. So I'd be curious to see how you coach these
Yeah.
kinds of people.
Yeah.
But before we get into this, I'd like to hear more about your experience at TKS. How did this happen in your life? Like I don't know the whole story here. I'd like to keep going with this tying things together properly and understand your story better
Yeah.
and what you've learned through this experience.
Oh wow, what I
What's
learned
TKS
is a
first?
lot.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm not even sure I understand.
Yeah, TKS stands for the Knowledge Society. It sounds a bit cultish. It's not. It's it's an accelerator. So not for like Y Combinator is an accelerator for startups. This is an accelerator for humans. So how do you accelerate the human? And teenagers are uniquely positioned to be in this position where they don't have any responsibilities over their head except for themselves. And they have this insatiable drive and curiosity. Well, at least some of them, right? So we gather those handful of them around the world and we run a program where we expose them. We basically fill the gap where school can't right now. And we are building education that actually is relevant for today. So exposure to not just technology, not coding. It's like exponential technology, right? So how drones can actually change drug delivery, right? Or how space travel or drugs can even be manufactured in space, for example. There's so many aspects that we don't even think about, right? Advanced robotics was on the radar of our students 5 years ago. Now it's a hot topic, and even some don't know about that. But we are in a robotics boom. We're just not aware of it because all the noise around AI that's somewhat justified. Our students know about that, and then they're 17, right? They're sent off with incredible direct guidance from coaches such as myself to build things that matter, not this, not whatever hot air balloon, random stuff they might do in school, boat. That's cool. But again, this is a subset. These are like kids that are nerds. They couldn't find a place to fit in. And, I was one of them. There aren't really communities. There might be a after school club for like Dungeons and Dragons, but like, how do you actually build? How do you channel? What is there a vehicle for this incredible ambition? TKS fills that. And then they build projects. And with
And
our
what do you
direct
coach
coaching,
them about? Like, are you their only coach, or you're a coach in a certain domain and they learn different things from different coaches?
I have like a few cohorts of students. So each coach has their own cohorts.
Okay.
We also try not to take ourselves too seriously. So it's like they want to get direct experience from Pranav, because he used to work with entrepreneurs. Like they can talk with him, but they're building projects, and project sounds informal. The result is we have an alumnus who's raising funds, has over $100 million valuation, raising funds from people like Naval for a non-invasive, right? So it's not in your body, blood glucose monitor. It's like kind of sci-fi, and he's not 25 yet. He's kind of bending physics. There's a lot of our students before they're at the age of 20, after just 1 year at TKS, these projects give them the credibility to speak on stages like South by Southwest, connect with and have a network that's way more powerful than ours. It's incredible. So that's what projects.
And what are
leads
you
to.
coaching them about exactly?
Yeah. So there's a few different dimensions. So one is the mindsets, is like stoicism, anti-fragility. There's the human, them as a person. How do we accelerate them in their development and to develop into a really solid person that is able to think for themselves? So we do a lot of conversations, a lot on that. And they have maximal
So you're not
freedom.
coaching them about robotics. Like,
No. Oh,
Like
they're thankful I'm not, because I don't know much about anything.
so they're already into robotics, but you're accelerating them.
If they're into robotics,
As a
they build
human.
that. Yeah, they get to choose what they're interested in. But that's it, is whatever their path is, they have someone that's able to actually push them in the direction they want to go, has that conviction in them. And I'm able to check their blind spots, right? So if they think they're building the incredible robot that, is able to move like this, it's like, I actually wouldn't focus on like the big macro movements. The biggest adjustment right now in robotics, the limiting factor is the micro movements around hands. It's actually an incredibly hard engineering problem that's limiting the advancement of AI and robotics. That's the problem to focus on. So it's great because I'm self-studying. I happen to know this kind of stuff by just always reading and being curious innately. That's what I meant about role modeling. So then I can directly give that to a kid that's interested in robotics. And now they're spending equal amount of effort, but what they're building is actually going to be caught by some startup founder, maybe at Figure
So you
AI.
are coaching them on robotics in that
Directions.
case.
Yeah, directions. I have
Okay.
no idea how to build, but it's like, this seems to make sense, you know?
So what's the qualification to become a coach at TKS?
You're gonna have to ask the founders that, because
Like,
when
what
you're
do you guys have in common, like as
Yeah.
coaches?
uh, a lot of fire, in our belly, a lot of curiosity, and a big belief in the capability of young people. I think that's probably the common factor. All the
You
intangibles
do
are
need to have some basic understanding
for sure.
of advanced
You
technology.
have to demonstrate that in the interview process. But that's what I mean is like, there's no course right now to study this stuff. You can't go to university and learn about what I talked about because that's happening the last 2 years. They can't keep up. So our world is so democratized, which is so beautiful. Anyone can get a job anywhere if you have the basic, you need Wi-Fi, you need internet. But the way I can learn about this, you can learn about this. So what's the missing ingredient? It's probably curiosity. Yeah, some innate curiosity and hunger to explore and push the frontiers of knowledge and what's possible. Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah, yeah.
But now you've decided to go on your own way and build your own program
Yeah.
and pick one of the people you're going to coach.
The outcomes of TKS, I used to try to like kind of forcefully, what did I learn? You asked, there's so much. One thing that comes to mind is I used to kind of apply mindfulness forcefully and like balance and equilibrium so that, I was worried about how they're inevitably going to burn out. I've learned that there is
Your coaches.
my coaches at TKS, these young adults, 17, 18, 19.
Yeah, sitting on a rocket.
Yeah. One of them actually is working directly with Elon Musk as he returns to Tesla right now. He's on the battery team. And I think he's 20. He's getting an internship that he's not supposed to be qualified for because he's super capable. But so he's actually a great example, super smart. But I used to apply like, hey, have you looked at life this way a little bit more holistically? He's not built for that, right? And that was very humbling for me. It's like, I don't have the recipe for how to live life. I have it for me. It doesn't mean it applies to Tobias. Tobias is his own beautiful beast of a person. He is so powerful. And his ambition needs to be exercised. He has an ambition I cannot understand almost. So he needs to do his thing. What I've learned though is at some point, inevitably, people like Tobias and maybe the people that are listening, there's another season to life. So there's a second season that comes around, a second chapter where the thing has been done. What you set out to accomplish, you've achieved. You have the material success. You have internally the satisfaction that you wanted to build that and you did it. But then what? Right? And so sometimes it's forcefully a pause, whether it's burnout, whether it's maybe a family member passing away, having a child. There are external environments and internal environments that we inhabit that force us to reevaluate, wait, what is actually that I'm after? And is it relevant to my current circumstance? And we change a lot in 10 years. So now who I coach, and this is kind of my bread and butter, I've learned from my own experience, try to connect the dots. What am I good at? It's all these pivots, honoring every chapter so that I'm directly aligned with that. And that's why I took a year unpaid off. It was a hard decision. We can get into that. So anyone that is looking to enter that next chapter very intentionally and see it as an opportunity of growth, so treat it very seriously, I think a coach makes sense, so that you can maximize the possibilities and the potential of that transformation that's on the cusp. Yeah.
So people come to you when they feel they need to pivot.
Yep. In any way, I'm working with an engineer right now. Software engineer is brilliant. And it's like, how does he feel? He doesn't want to leave his job. doesn't want to change career. How does he just approach his job differently so he feels more fulfilled? But I have, some other people that are younger that are like, if we talk about ambition, how do you make your ambition kind of clean versus dirty? What is it fueled by? So like dirty fuel I see as like external validation, a lot of insecurities, incredible driver, like we talked about, short term.
Yeah.
But that's not gonna work. Like if you put dirty fuel, if you put diesel in a gasoline car, or if you just keep pumping gasoline in cars forever, something's gonna break. And maybe it's our best option right now compared to batteries and how we recycle batteries, whatever. We're not gonna get into that. The point is, something's got to give at some point. It's not sustainable. What's sustainable is clean fuel. And for ambition, I think that looks like like we talked about a lot with kids. It applies to adults. We are kids inside. That genuine curiosity, that motivation to create for creation's sake. What does that play? Some people that are listening, that might sound like alien talk. I know it was alien for me 5 years ago. I didn't really understand what creativity was. I thought that was a luxury. It turns out everything we are doing, we're either creating or consuming, right? So how do you do this in a very sustainable way so that you can still do that thing that's super ambitious, but you can do it for 30, 40 years to come because you love it instead of having to burn out? That's another subset.
And what's the typical switch in the mindset that you're going to see that's going to help someone rekindle the flame about what they were doing? Or how does it happen? Is there like typical questions you're gonna ask, or?
Yeah, like how do they even know they have a desire for coaching?
No, you were giving the example of an engineer who's no longer feeling good about his job, but he's not looking to change job, but just to switch his mindset about it,
Right?
and get back in love with this work.
Yeah.
How does that happen?
I used to be very structured with my coaching. There was a bit of imposter syndrome. I started building my coaching practice over a year ago, and so I was new to it, and I emulate what good coaches do. It seems like good coaches, frameworks, right? Frameworks, kind of prescriptive, build a program or a curriculum, and I realized.
But I'm not asking you about if there's a typical framework you use, because I know you're trying to get away from that. You're trying to let yourself just go with the flow and customize the approach with every guest. But every
they're guests. They're guests
every client.
Yeah.
But in this particular case, and I'm sure you see that quite often, what was the wrong approach to their job that you're helping them fix that could help other people like listening to you?
Totally.
Maybe find a few paths they could follow to rekindle their passion for their work.
Something that comes up a lot, and all my coaching is informed from like personal experience, this feeling like you're trapped, like you need the job, you need the money. We kind of lose ourselves in the job when we get used to it. And the main purpose of what got us to do this particular craft and this particular role at this company, we forget about it and quickly becomes just a money maker to sustain our lifestyle. And this is what I mean about like innately curious and remaining a child at heart. Is it's really easy to get complacent when you're just in your job and then you finish your job and you're tired and you just want to kind of unwind, right, and relax. There are implications to these decisions. Like there's no creativity outside of work potentially. And then the fire goes away and then you are not learning new things. And then before you know it, it makes sense. I would also feel like a little bit of a drone, just having to show up, kind of mechanical. So a big shift is like realizing you're not trapped. Like I am always trying to be very bluntly, compassionately, honest with my clients and treat them with respect. And the most respectful thing to do is what, Jenny does for me, like I mentioned, is it's called the BS directly with love. It's like, you don't need this job. Why are you still in it? Let's actually go through the money, your finances. Okay. So you have enough. So like, why are you still doing this? Switch a job. We can actually work on what does another job look like or another path. And then sometimes they'd go on another path. And it actually is amazing. That's really important that they made that switch at that time. Other times, and this is where I want it to just unfold for the client, is deeply understanding their context instead of me applying what I think is right, because I have no idea. I'm not them. Sometimes it's like, wait, I didn't realize there's so many opportunities within this job that I actually could enjoy.
Like
just,
what?
So there might be a space in a place like Google, for example, they encourage, like, it is built into their schedule and their calendars. You have to have free time to work on side projects, And so if you have 2 hours, and this has nothing
Yeah,
to,
Google is notorious for that.
you're right.
It's pretty cool.
But the interesting thing is, like, that actually exists a lot informally at every company, and also this is applicable for our lives outside of work. If you're going to take 2 hours for learning, how are you going to be passive or are you going to be active about it? So it's this intentionality that is usually a missing ingredient. Is, are you moving through life sleepwalking passively, letting things happen to you, or are you going after it? Are you dictating the direction? Are you the author? And coming back to the ownership is like, do you feel like you're in charge? It's a posture shift. The exact same circumstances on the outside physically. This mentality, though, of like, well, wait, I call the shots, and when I make this decision, it changes this outcome. Okay, this is kind of cool, right? And all of a
Yep.
sudden, that side project not just like makes the work more interesting at the job, it could turn into something, and it has. Yeah,
Intentionality.
yeah,
So you're just helping them look at things differently,
yeah,
and that can really help. And I like intentionality is such an interesting concept. Like it's really like what vibration you're in, like while you're doing things, and
yeah,
I see can make such a big difference, like on the experience you're having,
yeah.
depending on the intention you have.
Yeah. And intentionality is one facet. Sometimes it might be an insecurity, around a power dynamic, previous trauma. I'm not, and I don't pretend to be someone, that can work someone through trauma like a psychologist. It's not my place. I would send them to a therapist in that case, refer them. But for them to even be aware, like,
That's it.
yeah, I'm not able to interact with my manager. I'm stuck in this mid-level position and I can't get promoted because I have these conflicts because my boss is being unreasonable. But it's like, let's play back that tape mentally. How are you talking to your boss? You're creating the conditions you don't want. And Jerry Colonna, a very famous coach, he asked this great question: how am I complicit in creating the conditions I don't want? Basically, like, how am I the problem? Like, what
Yeah.
role do
What
I
am
play
I
in this?
tolerating?
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's like you're almost like the triage, like finding what's your constraint,
Yeah.
and then maybe I can help you work on it, or somebody else
That's
could.
it.
But identifying the constraint is the first step.
That's it. I'm not there to help, I'm not there to tell someone how to live their life or to live it for them, Success for me is I'm done with the client in 6 to 12 months. Not anything more than that. I'm not doing my job because they they know they have the answers in them. They have the capability, and that comes full circle, right? It's beyond just classroom education. It's a philosophy. They have it within them, everything they need. So how do I bring that
Yeah.
out of them? And that's why I need to treat every individual very uniquely. Is I don't know what's in them, and I don't know what they need. Yeah, so we have to figure that out together. Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, it's
It's
great.
a dance.
It must be so what's the word? Fulfilling to do that and see them like have this aha moment at some point, and be excited again by the path they choose, and it must be a great experience of like professional experience.
Yeah. Yeah. Trusting the process. I would have never guessed, all the esoteric stuff I was studying, many years ago would have actually got me to this position, would have manifested in this way. Just, followed my curiosity, was very deliberate about it, and now it's led to this. And none of this is possible without really deep presence, right? So that's how something like actually having a proper meditation practice instilled in my life enables me to be a coach in the first place. Yeah.
Is there a typical crowd that reaches out to you or that you're attracted to? Like,
Yeah.
like, is there an, like, what would you say is like what's your typical crowd?
Yeah. It's like I mentioned, it's kind of those, it's kind of three archetypes right now. I'm always adapting and changing, as you know. But right now, what seems to make sense is like, what have I done really well for myself that seems to, through family and friends and other people that know me, it's like my secret sauce, something I do very uniquely. And it's my way of thinking. It attracts three groups of people. One is that kind of post founder or founder that wants to find a better balance because they're realizing it's good for a sprint, it's not good for a marathon, and life's a marathon. That hits them. And so they want to keep doing their thing, or they want to exit and kind of reevaluate. Another one is the unhappy corporate person that like is trying to feel more fulfilled, And what do? Do they leave the career or do they change their approach to their career and stay within it, just with a different attitude? And then the last is, which I find very interesting and dear to heart right now, is anyone that is a high performer. How do you remain high performing? How do you change your definition of what high performance is when an external change happens, like having a child? And so there's a lot of moms and dads
Yep.
that are very high achieving, and suddenly, usually without them realizing, it's after the kid is born and it's like newborn, 2 weeks in, and you're like, how many times am I going to keep canceling or postponing these meetings because they need to be done, but I can't do them?
Yeah.
And that is a really big shift. Having to honor that, redefining your identity because you have changed now. Your circumstances have changed. How do you change your identity to be up to date? It's a lot of hard work. Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, you were mentioning earlier in the podcast those high leverage decisions or high leverage activities, but yeah, high leverage decisions that need to be made. And typically your clients will be at a stage in their life where either they have some major decisions to make or some major adaptation to make. And you're there to help them with the transition.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
Yeah. It is very exciting.
I can't wait to have a moment like this. I need to call you.
It's yeah, I mean, if we're gonna get real, and that's what I've been told is a differentiator a bit at my coaching, is like being very real, being very human. This is a bit of a secret sauce. It's cool because it's fun for me to be very human, like it is for anyone. We have that. Like, again, what does my spouse do for me? Is that blind spot checking?
Yeah.
My approach to coaching, look, I'm figuring everything out. And a really good coach is equally a student as they are, a guide. You need to be informed by some sort of experience. Otherwise, it's theoretical and you don't actually internalize it. I was trying my coaching a year ago, 2 years ago now. And my wife was like, what? Like, why are you telling people how to live? I'm like, yeah, that's not right. So I changed my approach. And eventually, she's like, again, like, why don't they just talk to their friends about these things? Great question, Jenny. And then I asked a client, I was like, why don't, am I replaceable? Like, I value your time and your money. And they're like, I don't have that, actually. And I realized how much I take this for granted. We started the episode of like how we take things for granted. That is my Achilles heel. If someone wants to reach out to me to coach me on this, I'm trying to crack the code on how to stop taking things for granted. It's really hard. It's my biggest weakness.
Well, what is it you're taking for granted?
Friendships. The fact that we basically are coaching each other, right? Because we have this deep friendship that we can talk about really important things and hash it out. Not a lot of people have that. And for me to have an abundance of that, like I can't even count on two hands all the friends I have that I can do that with. It's kind of a weird thing that we have outsourced. We were talking about outsourcing before, our problems, our friendships and deep conversations. We live in a world where we're time scarce. So now it's like if someone wants to have a deep conversation and talk about life and how they can be intentional about their next step, they don't even have time to develop the friendship, so they have to pay someone to outsource that and have that conversation.
I disagree with you on that.
Tell me.
Because friends or a long-term relationship with a friend will come with a whole bunch of, I mean, it's very it's very hard to remove yourself from the old relationship you've had. Like, you've known a friend since you were young, and probably the perspective you have on this friend hasn't changed as much as the friend has changed. Like, the relationship in between the two people is like its own entity. It's not as clear a perspective you have on a friend as a coach who's completely removed and who doesn't know the person personally and for a long time will have. So it's actually very interesting to go talk to someone who doesn't know you, because then it's a fresh perspective that's rooted in this moment, where you are at the moment compared to your friends. The way they see you, they might see you the same way they've seen you for years.
That's a really good point.
So maybe a combination is interesting, because they know you for a long time. They might know stuff about you that the coach doesn't perceive.
Yeah.
But going to someone who doesn't know you also might be a lot easier to open up for someone and just, I'll pay you. It's transactional. It's a service. I feel more comfortable talking to you than I would be to my friends who I've known for too long.
Yeah.
So I think you definitely have a place here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's also, you were saying, like,
I'm not a great marketer, as you can tell. I did the opposite of selling myself. So thank you for recovering.
Well,
that's what I mean about being real. You know,
it's interesting for you to maybe to have this perspective. Also,
For sure.
You're the introspective type. Like, you think a lot about these things, so you might be attracting a lot of people that are like you, and so that's why you might have two hands amount of friends who you can have that kind of conversations with. I don't have that. And I'm more of an introspective type. Some people are not even that introspective, so they might not even have friends whom they talk of these things with, so they need you even more.
It's a really good point. Yeah.
So
you're
I like, amongst all the people, you'd be the kind of person who'd have the most types of this type of friend who you can have these deep conversations. And so your service is in demand.
Yeah.
People need you a lot more than you think.
Yeah.
We have a bit of time left on the cameras. I was thinking we could do something fun. So you've prepared these about 20, 30 points, core philosophies, like Aatik's core philosophies, subset philosophies, writing ideas.
Yeah.
So you were explaining before the podcast that you've asked ChatGPT to summarize somehow all the conversations you've had with ChatGPT for the past 2 years, you were saying?
Yeah.
So you've been using ChatGPT for 2 years.
2 years.
You're an early adopter.
Well, that's the TKS mindset, right? It is early to everything technology. Yeah.
And you thought of doing that so that you could send me some ideas, some prompts for this discussion. We didn't yet use it in this conversation, but I thought they were such good points. So we don't have time to go over most of them.
I don't have time to go through most of this. Like this came out of necessity, eh? Like, just to tell the story. It's
But I thought we could do something fun. Okay, so I would ask Gab to name a number between 1 and 8. Yeah, name a number between 1 and 8. 3. Okay. Radical ownership. Okay, you wrote you're responsible for your decisions, your time, and your energy. No one else is coming to give you permission. Just wrap on that.
Well, the beautiful thing is that I'm consistent, right? I always tell my clients that whenever they have a hardship, I'm like, you've mentioned that before. There's a pattern. That's a good signal. So for me, we talked about radical or extreme ownership a few times. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if we need to touch on that.
Okay.
But I do want to talk about how, like, this came out of having to remove myself from complaining and start doing something, right? So shifting from life is happening to me.
Yeah.
I don't have time for writing. I'm taking my daughter for a walk. I wish I could be writing right now. To the owner.
But don't you think that brings you in a posture of trying to control everything?
It's hard to let go when you have extreme ownership.
Well, that's the beautiful duality, right? Is how do you, again, multiplicity should be on this list if ChatGPT is doing a good job. How do I equally hold that I need to make things happen because I'm responsible, while I need to let go and let life flow?
Yeah.
That's the art, man.
I
That's
feel
the
like
art.
I've struggled with applying too much extreme ownership in my life until like I never questioned this mindset, thinking it would only make me a better person, it make me a more responsible person. But recently I realized that I was not letting life express itself, and I was not willing to just follow what's happening to me and be a little more um
Open?
open, or acceptant, or like accepting what life brings. And that's like a huge burden that lifted from my shoulders since I've had this shift. So extreme ownership, or radical ownership, doesn't have the same ring to me as it used to.
That's very interesting.
And
So
if you're
you're bring
talking to a lot of ambitious, high achievers type of people, I think they're already maybe too. They're having too much ownership. They're trying to control things too much,
yeah.
and they should probably try and let go a little more.
Yeah. There is
And
another
that frees up a lot of creativity, I find.
there's a philosophy written here that, acceptance is actually effective and efficient at the bottom. And this is actually, I think, a common pain point that especially with founders that I work with, they're scared, man, to be accepting, because radical acceptance, written by Tara Brach, the mentality a lot of people assume is like, if I'm gonna just like be happy with everything, I'm gonna end up on this. This is a very nice couch. I'm gonna end up on this couch because it's very comfy. And if I'm happy with myself, I'm just gonna be complacent.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna do anything.
So that's the other end of the spectrum.
It's a spectrum, exactly. And it's like, how does acceptance before we know it move into complacency? I
Yeah.
think the difference, the fine line between them, that what separates it is, and I always ask this as a thought experiment. I'll ask the audience, like, when's the last time you were just like genuinely satisfied with yourself? And if you can actually internalize that moment, I don't know if something comes to mind for you, like when you were completely at peace with who you were. If you can imagine, maybe you literally were sitting on a couch, how long could you stay put without being excited to do something when you were just satisfied with and happy with the way things were in life?
Not long.
So it's actually like a false story I think we tell ourselves out of fear.
It's a false.
It's the opposite.
It's one of those bears that Tim Ferriss talks about, like
The
those
bears?
like when he says like, oh, I don't want to get into this, but it's like it's a false truth. Or it's
Yeah.
especially for high achievers.
Yeah.
Typically, like people that are very driven, like they're usually they're on the other end of the spectrum, and they need to bring themselves back towards the center.
Yeah.
And that's what Vipassana was great for, I
Yeah.
thought.
And not compromising productivity, right? You're not at all. Actually,
No.
it's probably enabling it long
Just
term.
creating a bit more headspace.
Yeah. Before we finish, we have to talk about how we met, but I'll
We'll
follow your lead.
We'll finish with that.
Yeah.
Gabriel, pick a number between 1 and 10.
8.
Deliberate scope is freedom.
Oh man.
What do you mean by that? I don't understand it.
I just read actually this morning, a coach, I know him, he's a friend. He was writing about how it was a very honest piece. He has to do more than just coaching because he can't live off of just his coaching practice that's doing pretty well. And for me, I'm going to have to chat with him. He lives in New York City. Why does he live in New York City? What game is he playing? What are the environment constraints that he's created that are enabling what he doesn't want? I'm very intentional about knowing that I want time. Time is what I need. I'm a very slow person, and all the intentionality and reflection comes through time. My patience for my wife and my child, it's very thin sometimes. What fuels patience is time. And time, I think patience is the most precious thing for us right now as parents and as partners. So my scope for my coaching practice is very tight. like I mentioned, right? It's a really high performing, ambitious people that want to kind of reevaluate what does success mean to them and therefore redefine their identity and their meaning of ambition. I only need 6 clients at a time. It doesn't sound like a lot, and it's on purpose a low amount, but it's because my lifestyle burn is very low. And the reason that's low is because I've been very deliberate about how much is enough. And if I actually live by what is enough, and I mean not enough like, I'm struggling, we're only eating lentils, but when I was 20 to 24, I was only eating lentils and I was very happy. And I think that's what I also mean about life experience for young people and adults. Do you know it? Do you actually know it in your body that you can be happy with very little? Because if you go through an experience, you know that you don't need that much, and
So-
that's freeing.
So when you're saying deliberate scope, you mean less abundance or less. I thought you meant reducing the amount of options, making things simpler.
That's
like
it.
Minimalism.
Yeah, this was in the context of my coaching practice. I could be hiring a growth marketer. I could be, posting a lot, playing the game to get a lot more clients, but I don't need to. And it will actually come at a disadvantage of what I'm trying to achieve. I'll end up with less time. I'm not going to be a coach as much as I'm going to be a marketer. I do not want to be a marketer. No offense to marketers. I'm just not good at it. It doesn't energize me. So I don't want to lose myself. The only reason I have that freedom to just only coach few people at a time, and I can afford off for that, is because I've uncluttered my life. Yeah. So it's hard though, it's like, do I get rid of the brand car, the desire for that logo on the car? Do I get rid of the car altogether? And these positive constraints literally I got rid of my car when I was 24, and I got into cycling as a form of commuting. It meant I lived centrally because I needed to get around places. So I got a cheap apartment centrally, met a lot more people. There's more density. It's more interesting, walkable. I got healthier. So less is more sometimes. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. It's very interesting to me.
I'm fighting my ego daily about this kind of stuff.
In what way? I want to hear
Well,
this.
I have like I love material things. I love nice cars, clothes. Like I just love good food. I want to go to the restaurant, but all of these things just make my living my living level like much higher, and then it just makes it harder to be financially independent. And it's just all these things make you attached, like you're dependent on them. You're not happy if you don't have them anymore. So
it's really like a win-win. Now, like, I don't want people to think that I'm a full-on monk, like ascetic, but there's a strong dose of that. I love eating great food as well, but if we're talking about food, for example, I learned that fine dining is too cerebral. I like a really messy taco joint. That's where I'm my happiest. I can wear this hoodie, not feel judged. That is where I feel most myself. So not only am I happier, it's also cheaper, which is very interesting. But the work of the ego work, man, which I think all this whole conversation comes down to, is it is a forcing function when I'm trying to live with less, of checking myself again, radical accountability to myself of this is just inflating my ego. And it's really hard to deny the material stuff, but if I am, I will be better off. And trusting that, and after a month of these decisions, it starts, you start compounding. Yeah, it gets easier. Yeah.
But you're it's not an easy one.
It's not an easy one. It afforded me a year off though with my daughter. Which I knew
crazy.
that time was going to make my life so much easier than whatever that salary I missed out on for a year was going to do.
You wanna pick that number?
What's the number?
Taking an unpaid sabbatical?
Yeah, that's a great transition, man. A lot of friends have told me, hey, I would love to do that. And I asked them, why not? They say they can't afford it, or they're worried about their career progression, and there's real considerations. I'm not trying to minimize that stuff, but I'm always inviting others and myself to just question things. Just question. Maybe you end up doing the exact same thing. You live your life the same way, but you can be deeply at peace that you know that this is the best thing for you. even if you don't change anything. But sometimes it leads to, wait, I can afford it. Like, I don't need to leave. What am I saving for? You know, like a lot of people leave a big inheritance that actually ruins their children long term because they have too much money. We talked about that. They don't try much in life. They don't have to fight for anything. So if you're leaving a huge inheritance, for what reason? You know, for a legacy that's ego driven, what if you let go of that? Could you have a full year in the hardest year of your life, maybe? That's pretty wild. It's just questioning. That's it. So this is an
Plus, it's
open
like-
invitation for everyone to just question their default assumptions. That's it.
But leaving a big legacy is ego driven.
It's about you, man.
It can't be about anything else. You're gone. You're gonna be dead. Like the only thing is like the only thing I think you're trying to achieve some sort of an immortality there, like leaving something so that you can stay alive. But it's an interesting question. Like, why do we want to leave a nice legacy, like a material legacy, like wealth? Like, why do we want to build intergenerational wealth?
Yeah.
Like, sounds like a good thing to do, but is it really important? Like,
Past enough, right? Like, I get it. Like, you want to help your children, especially these days with housing. That's healthy. But
Yeah.
like at some point, it's
but like,
excess.
yeah, leaving them enough so that they don't have to work anymore. Like, that's
Crazy.
that's probably too
I wouldn't
much.
wish that upon my worst enemy. You know, to have no drive, no reason to work, it's really debilitating.
But is it no reason to work? Like, is money the only reason to work? Like, can't they like
Here we go.
lead a very exciting life if suddenly money's no longer what's driving them? Tim Ferriss mentioned this question multiple times. I forget the context, but it's a question to ask yourself. If I had $1 billion in my account tomorrow, what would I do? If money was no longer part of the equation, what is it that I do? If you can figure that out and manage to earn a living doing that thing, isn't that like a great way to lead a life?
So I would let's hear your answer to that though. What would you do with the $1 billion if you got it
I don't
tomorrow?
know.
Would you want the $1 billion?
You were mentioning the importance of constraint. I think constraints are important, and having money being a constraint is useful. But what if you don't have that constraint? What other constraints are you gonna create in your life? That'd be interesting.
Yeah.
That'd be an experiment. Like,
Yeah.
life without the need for money.
Yeah.
How to lead a good life without the need for money, like insane financial independence. Like, money, it's not like you're a billionaire. Like, money doesn't account for anything. And raising great children that are like happy children with that amount of money.
Yeah.
That's a great challenge.
It's a great challenge. Yeah, I agree.
It's interesting, and it'd be interesting, but it's hard to it's a challenge.
It's complicated, man, because you like, again, these two things are true, I think. You know, like it could be healthy if you were not purely driven by, I'm not saying to be purely driven by money, but like if you were not driven by money at all, maybe it could be healthy. I have no idea. I'm not going to act like I know what
No,
that's
it's hard
you
to
know,
tell.
but I do also see like it forces you to get out of bed, you know, like so much of what seems like mental health struggles, I think, is like no motivation, no reason to even get out of bed. And for me personally, I protect myself against that depression, which I've intimately felt. It's there was a period of time when I was really, really low expenses and I was a substitute teacher. I was like, do I need to work today? I don't. But then I wouldn't get out of bed, you know, until I made sure that I filled my life with rich things, but it still became hard, even though I was living the life I wanted to live. There is some sort of great thing to have a forcing function where you have to show up, because it's like the gym, man. Every work, like I've never heard of anyone
The
who is
gym's a good example.
5 minutes into your workout, did you ever regret it, you know?
No.
But to get there,
But we
sometimes
don't
you don't
do
want
it
to.
for money.
That's like
Yeah.
one example of something that requires drive. Like we need to push ourselves, and it has nothing to do with money.
It's a great example. Yeah.
And we can still do it.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah.
Some people do it better than others.
Yeah. Yeah. So what will
What
drive
would
you?
replace money?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
a tough question.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to start wrapping up this conversation.
I agree.
There's gonna be a part two. I hope. Like there's so many good questions on that sheet of paper. Like we could talk hours. But yeah, all good things have an end.
I'd be honored to be. I was already honored to be considered once. Second time, I'm more than happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how did we meet?
How did we meet? I mean,
What was your experience at? So yeah, where did we meet?
so how did we meet?
Yeah, how did we meet?
Were you you were staring at my head, right?
Yeah,
For 10 days.
and at your back, and at your t-shirts.
And my t-shirts, my
What-
infamous Montreal t-shirts.
What was that? What was it saying? It was like fun psychedelic research. I
Fund
think-
psychedelic research.
I think it was one of those like that. Like when I saw that one for the first time, I was like, "Oh, that guy's cool." And then I was seeing like climbing t-shirts. So okay, the guy's a climber. I would notice by the type of pants you were wearing. So I was just analyzing you the whole time, and I was like, I was receiving your vibe also. Like I felt.
What
I
was my
remember, like
vibe?
I remember. I remember telling myself like that guy is classy. Like that's something that came up. I felt like you had some sort of an elegance to you.
Wow. Okay. That's news to me.
Yeah. That's how I perceived you the whole week. I was like, that guy's so classy, man.
Wow. Even with my ripped pants or,
Elegance doesn't
Yeah.
elegance has nothing to do with the way what you wear. I
yeah. Jeez, man, if only we could see ourselves the way friends that deeply admire us see us, eh? If only.
It'd be
I have no idea what the hell you're talking about. I gotta work on loving myself a bit more. I can't even understand this. That's crazy.
You had this grace, and yeah, I really wanted to talk to you at the end of this.
Yeah, likewise, man. I mean, so speaking of seeing you a certain way that you didn't see in yourself we've done enough suspense. It was the Vipassana 10-day silent meditation
Yeah.
retreat in Montebello. Random seating, right? We were in the back of the room, and it's 10 days, and you're there for like 10 hours a day, right?
Yeah.
On the same cushion,
Yeah, and you're always in the same spot in the
and you're always not talking.
in the room.
So we're not even allowed to glance at each other.
No.
And we never did. Like, I never made eye contact
No.
with you, but I would look at you whenever you weren't looking at me. And 10 days nonstop, not talking, sitting into meditation, I was seeing you.
Struggling.
But you weren't, from my vantage point, you were my pillar. And a lot of, that.
But
a lot of other people mentioned Leo, by the way, guys, Leo, he was a monk. He gave the strength because we're not technically allowed to move in a 1 hour meditation sitting, which is excruciating after 10 days on your knees and your back. But you looked like you were locked in, you were zoned in, perfect posture, not affected, and you brought confidence to many people that were physically around you.
It's crazy you're saying that, but I also had that impression of you. Like you were keeping me like
Oh my
like
God.
I was like, oh, this guy's so flexible. Like he seems so comfortable. Like I really felt
Crazy.
like you were like handling it very
Oh my
well
God.
too.
Oh, you didn't see my
But
legs
like
shaking.
I knew in my head that you were probably struggling. Like it can't be. Like it's just hours sitting in the same position, like cycling through like 2 or 3 positions, like through your hour.
Yeah.
And
I need to do 2 things. I need to flip it back to you for 2 things before we end up recording. Okay. One was a promise you made. And another one is like the power of vulnerability. And I'll never forget that moment. We had an opportunity to ask the meditation teacher at the end of our sits, 1 hour sessions. And you were there during this kind of little powwow. And you would go around, do you have any questions? And you mentioned you were struggling. And the fact that you shared that actually, oddly, paradoxically, showed how human you were and gave me confidence that, okay, he's relatable. Like he's going through what I'm going through. And that gave me the boost I needed for the extra days that were still there, that were very hard. And your openness to share that, when I think everyone subconsciously was like trying to tell themselves that they're strong, you openly just admitted like, oh, I'm feeling weak. That was huge. That was so incredible as a demonstration of the strength and vulnerability I found. Yeah.
And we were starving for these kinds of things. Like that's what I find beautiful about removing so much out of your life, is that you start craving the little things. And Vipassana is like one of those experiences where suddenly like just eating a piece of banana becomes like quite an experience. Like all the subtle things of life suddenly have like so much more color and taste to it because you're craving them so much.
Yeah.
And just a word.
Yeah.
Just a little like exchange of words can like make you feel better for an entire day.
Yeah. And then before we know it, we got used to it again.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It doesn't last very
That's
long,
it.
but
Yeah.
but it's cool to go into gosh, I wish I had the word sometimes in English. It's always a little harder.
En français.
Go into that. Même en français, je trouve pas le mot. Comment on appelle ça? Like a sense deprivation tank. Like it's always good, I find, to deprive yourself of basic stuff, just so that you can appreciate them, like periodically.
Yeah.
Like going camping, I find like I love going camping. Initially, I love it, but at the end, like I'm missing a whole bunch of things from modern society, and then I come back and I appreciate it again.
Yeah.
And doing that periodically,
Yeah.
just makes life so much more tasteful.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
Vipassana is like an extreme one.
It's fasting in different varieties. Yeah.
Fasting.
Yeah. Yeah. That's definitely a change that I've felt the last few years is I literally did a 3-day water fast. Like, I was more experimental and pushing, didn't eat for 3 days. And I used to do that stuff. I used to not eat any refined carbs and stuff. I think COVID hit and like, I just went to a bakery one day. This was like the only thing open. I was biking around. I was like, this is nice. I'm happy with this. And I realized it wasn't as dangerous, especially you go to a proper bakery that makes real bread, not sliced, processed bread. I was like, this is actually like good for me. I've stopped like being hard on myself so much. Easier on myself. I think similar to the acceptance thing, I was worried like, am I going to get lazy? Am I going to stop growing and be developing? It's like, no, I don't need to take myself that seriously. I did the fasting, and no shade to fasting. I think it's really healthy, but to consistently deprive ourselves, I think it's a very uniquely male thing that can get kind of toxic in excess. Yeah.
I think it's okay to cycle through things.
Yeah.
Like sometimes I'll feel like just ramping up the training program and like pushing myself, and I enjoy it.
Yeah.
And I'm proud and I'm feeling good about it. And then after a few months, like I'm tired of it, and it doesn't provide this pride and it doesn't provide this energy anymore. And now I allow myself to just stop.
Yeah.
It's okay. I don't need to have like a full-time routine. Like I can get off carbs for X amount of time and, feel like it's giving me more energy and I actually enjoy it.
Yep.
It's actually bringing me a positive, a net positive.
Yeah.
But then after a while, if it's just a burden and it's just you're not enjoying life as much because you can't eat fucking bread, well, just get back to it.
Yeah.
And that's life. It's
Yeah.
like periods. Like I find that oftentimes these periods are 3 months for me.
That sounds about right.
Like 90 days.
Yep.
Like they're boosts. They're like crunches of 90 days.
Happens to be the same length of a season. It's pretty interesting. It's very seasonal.
Season in the life.
I admire what you just mentioned about you. It has inspired me a lot. This ease that you've been leading in 2025. How did that get catalyzed?
Playing guitar.
Okay, that's all where I was trying to go.
How is this being catalyzed?
Because I thought, and I saw that it came from a moment of like it recalibrated. Recalibrated of what really matters, and Yeah.
So
How did it affect your ambition, this
I
moment?
told you this story. I'll tell it to you again. It was a very intense moment. I I was taking a morning off to do some personal stuff. Like I took just to introspect. Like at the end of the year, last year, and I was driving to Mont Royal to go on a hike. To go to the chalet on top and ride, and
Oh, I
on the
didn't know you
way
did that.
there I drove by my old home where I grew up from until the age of 15 about. And turns out that it's the same guy who moved into this house when I left. He still lives
You
there
visited often?
today. I never visited. I was too
Never.
shy to visit. But I was told he was very nice, and I was told that nothing had changed in the home. He had kept everything the same. And when I drive by the house, there was this for sale sign in front of the triplex. Chances are that I might not have this opportunity to visit ever again. So I decided to be courageous and go knock on the door. He was there. He opened, and I got to visit my old home. And it was like 2 minutes in, and the old man, like he was using help to move around, so he was not gonna walk me through the house. And he told me, "Young man, feel free to walk the house. I'll wait for you in the front." Very welcoming. So I got to walk my old home, and I just started bawling, man. Like it just came out from me because I was seeing that place with the eyes of when I was 2, 3 years old. It's crazy how I lived there 15 years of my life, but all the memories that came back and the perspective I kept from this place is the one I had when I was very little, like literally, like physically small. I would see the bathroom with an angle of a small child.
Yeah.
I would visit my mom's old room with the same, but then I was realizing everything was so small.
Yeah.
So it's basically like I got back into my 3-year-old body, and I was walking the house as a 30-year-old. And it made me cry so hard, and I have a hard time crying. Like I have this it's not something that happens to me very often.
Yeah.
But then I was like just bawling like a baby, and I went in the basement. Everything was still the same. My old room was still the same, painted the same color with the graffitis that I had painted when I was a kid. It was like such an intense moment of time machine.
What made you bawl? Like, why would
And
you cry? Yeah.
That's the question I asked myself. Like after that, I went to Mont Royal, climbed up, and I was sitting in the cafe. I was like, "What the fuck just happened?" Like I felt so damn emotional. And
Yeah.
and I think going back to my childhood this way made me realize how fast life went and how serious I was living. Like how seriously I was taking everything, how I was trying to optimize everything, how like everything was a business to me, like personally, like business wise.
Like present day, that's how
I
you
had
feel.
been since for the past like 12, 15 years, I've been very business like. I was 15, 16 years old, and I already started like having multiple jobs and being serious, and I've taken life way too seriously since I was this little boy. And I felt bad for him that I
Wow.
was that's what I grew up to be, like just someone serious, like. And I think that's why I cried, because I felt like I had somehow wasted a part of my life. And it really like, then we had our retreat, and you remember like my goal for 2025 was to not take on more, and I tried to like simplify my life and just laugh and live life and just walk my son to daycare and feel lighter and actually like enjoy life. And I noticed that when I feel lighter, I laugh more. I feel more like telling jokes. Like I'm just more like a happy person. And I had put that aside because I was driven and ambitious. And it was a great realization.
Yeah.
And now I play guitar. That's one of the things I picked up. And playing guitar is more like it doesn't have an aim and it doesn't have a time frame. And I just, sit down and pick up my guitar and play. And that's like the symbol right now I find in my new the new way I'm trying to live life is that I can play guitar.
That's the emoji.
I can,
for
yeah, that's the
2025.
emoji. Guitar by a
Yeah,
fire.
I'm gonna send you guitar emojis now.
Yeah, it'll be our emoji on Facebook Messenger.
But
We're
for
not even
people
on
to know,
Messenger.
like, oh, that's true. For people, it's not like you're not ambitious anymore.
No,
right? Like,
but
how
I'm
do
more
those
patient,
coexist?
and I'm more like the image I like is that I'm not clenching my fist.
White knuckling.
I'm not white knuckling things. Yeah.
They can coexist.
Yeah.
Yeah. Saying no is so powerful because then you're saying yes to the stuff you're putting aside, which is like you said, I put it aside. Like, what's it? Which is crazy, right? Like, how would you define it? Like, your soul? You're putting your soul aside? That's crazy.
It's like I'm greedy, It's like I always want more. So I was noticing, like last night, I was walking home in the metro, and I had time ahead. Like I was actually a little like early on the schedule, so I was not in a hurry. But like I remember, I passed someone, and I kind of cut him off in the metro, and I felt like, why did you just cut him off? Like, what are you in a hurry for? Like, just be courteous and like let him fucking go. Like, but I was in a hurry to get home to do nothing, especially like, and that's how I led my life. I think I'm an impatient person, but it led me to pass walk like away from the good stuff, like the funny stuff, like what
You're
life
rushing
is all
by
about.
it,
I'm
literally.
rushing by, yeah.
to get where? Yeah, like literally,
get
what were you
where.
in a rush to get to? That's so interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, I love that you're catching yourself, and I love that you're being human. That you're still rushing, but you're catching yourself rushing, and how like what happened when you realized that? Did you were able to chill out? a
Oh, it
little?
was like Denny would say, it's like it was a download. It was like, okay, man, pace yourself, enjoy life.
Yeah, and then you got to the guitar.
Yeah. Which I always wanted to do,
Yeah,
but I had no time.
yeah. Oh, I love it, man.
Yeah.
What a pleasure.
It was a great pleasure, man. I have to ask you a question before, actually 2 questions.
Okay.
First question, I've mentioned it before when we talked. I'd like you to nominate someone who you think be a good guest for this podcast.
Yeah.
Did you have a time to think about it?
I had some time. I would say there's 2 people that come to mind.
Okay.
One is a colleague at TKS,
Okay.
Pranav. Might not seem that different. We have a lot of similar philosophies, and he's also a brown man like me. So if we want to diversify the scope, you could go with him.
Yeah.
He's incredible. There's another
You're not
person.
the first Indian to come on the
Really?
podcast. No?
Okay, cool. Did the other Indian speak French?
No.
Ah, we need a Franco-Indian.
He speaks French?
Huh?
Pranav?
Non, definitely not.
Oh.
Mais je peux parler en français. Là, comme ça, on est plus diversifié.
Now it's proven.
But there's another person I talked to yesterday who was amazing. Known him for a while. Abenazir.
Okay.
Very interesting person. He's currently at Shopify.
Nice.
Spotify, sorry. I have another friend at
Oh,
Shopify.
Spotify.
Jude. You know Jude?
I'm even more stoked to have a Spotify guy.
Jude would be very interesting too.
Okay.
Who's at Shopify.
Okay.
Abenazir at Spotify. He has a lot to talk about. He's a DJ who is feeling everything that's happening geopolitically. You know, he's an Ethiopian man, lives in New York City, is part of the capitalist machine right now at Spotify. And he's on the inside, but he's finding ways to be true to himself. And he feels all the friction that's coming with that right now without dishonoring himself. And I think Jude is doing that very similarly as well on the inside at Shopify, building, agentic AI with Toby and the bunch. A lot to share.
Easy.
Yeah.
Wow, 3 for the price of 1. Awesome. You're gonna
I
be
came
busy.
prepared.
Gabriel is like, oh no, so much editing. All right, and I have a last question for you.
Okay.
You'll know where that one comes from. If you could write something on a billboard that everyone in the world could see, what would you write on it?
I was so worried about you asking me this question because I didn't think I was going to know what to say. But I trusted myself, right? Like I was trying to take this seriously, getting in the habit of over preparing, and then I just stopped. And so it's coming naturally, luckily. Thank God.
Amazing.
We talked about this earlier today over coffee. What if this moment was it? Would this be enough? Courtesy of Sam Harris. I try to take notes of these very powerful lines in the daily meditation that I was doing for a half decade on his app. And it hit me when I really want to get back into writing. I'm trying to keep the most important thing, which is my daughter. And it's very hard to, when I have this ambition in me to build my coaching practice and write a lot, stay focused on my daughter. I'm taking her for a walk in the rain this past weekend, and I'm just annoyed. I'm soaked. I'm cold. I'm wondering why I did this. She's asleep. I can't go back home. She'll wake up. I need her to have her nap. And I wish I was writing because all these ideas are in my head. I'm caffeinated. And I'm like, but it just hit me. I heard him say that line, Sam Harris, in my head. And that's where the practice pays off in ways we don't expect. I was like, what if this was it? Would I be happy with this? Is this enough for me to be satisfied? And it just, like I came here and I was like, I heard the birds all of a sudden. I could feel the rain.
Shift.
I could hear my daughter's breathing. I had no idea any of this was happening.
Beautiful.
And I was like, how much have I missed already? You know, like she's a year old, you know, and it's crazy. It's like, you can't go back, you know, that year old of my daughter, she's gone forever. And I don't love to be inspired by regret, but the truth is it's a big driver, man. It's like, I have worked so hard to earn these moments. I have them now. They pass me sometimes. And I'm lucky to catch myself, but that's the hard part about being human is we keep not following our own advice that we know. And
Don't be hard on yourself.
yeah, it's tough, man. It's tough. But I'm here
It's
for
practically
it now.
impossible to single task. You can't just be a father.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you can't control when you're a father and when you're a coach, and it's not, everything's jumbled. And
Yeah. How to make it work and still allow ourselves to
embrace chaos.
Yeah. So this moment is enough. And it has not killed my creativity. It's made me feel even more rejuvenated. For anyone that's worried about the ramifications, it's more inspiring when I'm actually satisfied and realize how beautiful your studio is. And how lucky I am to have you in my life, man.
Beautiful, man.
Yeah.
It was a great conversation about why we're doing all of this.
Yeah.
And we're working so hard, and we're trying so many things, and we're exploring, and it's good to come back to the essence and to the why we're doing all of this.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Good luck with the title for this podcast. Curious to see what you're going to come up with.
I can't wait to listen to it.
Likewise, man.
Aatik, thank you so much.
Yeah. Pleasure, man. We're lucky to have you.
So another great conversation ends. I hope it brought you tremendous value. If it did, please like, subscribe, or leave us a 5-star review on Spotify. We'd love to read your comments. Feel free to leave one. And also you can contact our guests. Usually their information is included in the description. So that's it. That's all. See you very soon, my friends.